is Barbara Dillon. I'm the editor-in-chief of Fanbase Press, and I'm honored to be here today with a super talented group of panelists next to me. We're going to be talking about working in comics and creating comics and graphic novels for all ages, for middle grade readers, and for young adult audiences as well. And I'd like to get started by introducing each of these wonderful people. First, next to me is Amber Padilla, who is a cartoonist and illustrator based in Oakland, California. She holds an MFA in comics from California College of the Arts. The Secret Garden on 81st Street, a modern graphic retelling of The Secret Garden, is Amber's debut graphic novel. She's also the author and illustrator of the forthcoming YA graphic novel, Sugar Coated. At her current day job, she hobnobs with Snoopy and the Peanuts gang over at Schultz Studios. And originally from Santa Ana, she was raised on a healthy diet of animation, science fiction, soap operas, and Japanese anime and manga. When she's not drawing or crafting, which currently an obsession is sewing, she enjoys snuggling with her cat and spending time with her husband, family, and friends. So welcome, Amber. Thanks for being here. Next to Amber is Paul Meyer, who is the youngest of 9 children and hails from Albuquerque, New Mexico. He left his hometown after high school and has been doing time in Hollywood ever since. In addition to stints as an actor on series like General Hospital and CSI, he has delved into filmmaking and self-publishing. He recently penned the cult hit comic book Sod and the graphic novel Under the Cottonwood Tree. As a proud Nuevo Mexicano, he strongly desires to shine a light on his people and culture. Most days you will find him clunking away at his computer, still in search of his 15 minutes. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, we have Carlos Saldaña, who has been the creator and publisher of Burrito Jack of All Trades for over 30 years. Member in good standing for over 30 years with the National Cartoonist Society and Comic Arts Professional Society, Carlos was born and raised on the east side of LA, attended Cathedral High School, and studied graphic arts at Los Angeles City College and Los Angeles Occupational Center. Carlos, thank you so much for joining us. Well, let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to be talking a lot today about young reader comics and graphic novels, so I always feel that it's helpful to describe that. So what does that mean to talk about young reader or all ages graphic novels, and why does it help to determine the age appropriateness of the content? Amber, we'll start with you.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I think there are certain concepts that kids don't necessarily fully understand right away, so those concepts need to be packaged in a way that's easier for them to digest. And so with The Secret Garden, it's a middle grade story, and it's dealing with some really big issues around anxiety and around grief, and it's just brought to kids in a way that's really easy for them to understand. But also when you're dealing with like an older group of kids, so you can have more advanced concepts, I guess, for them to digest. I don't know if I answered the question.
It does, absolutely. Yeah. Well, what about you?
No, I would bounce right off of that and agree. It's you're young adult or 18 to 14, which is under the country is, we're addressing larger issues of grief, but in a way that is more palatable to the young reader, and maybe once they're entertained, they'll go along with the story and they'll be able to realize the inner meanings of it. But there are obviously things that I don't think should ever be addressed in children's either comics or books. Just adult issues. Like I'm still trying to address the innocence of a child, so I don't need to expose them to modern the decrepitness. I don't know of modern society. Like I'm not going there. I'm going to more innocence.
And to sort of piggyback off of that, I sometimes think about the show Euphoria as an example of like the show's about teenagers, but it's really a show for adults because of the themes in the show. Where like something that's not on CW would be more appropriate for a younger audience.
Oh, completely. I think, but that's their bread and butter, right? Absolutely.
Carlos, what about you? Anything you'd like to add?
What was the question?
Sure, absolutely. So why do you think it helps to define the age appropriateness of the content for young readers?
Oh, whatever they said. What can I add?
What would Burrito say?
Whatever they said.
That's what Burrito said?
No, when I attack a story, I try to write for all ages. Because I think no matter what age you are, you're still a child inside. And that's the way I look at it. And I try not to write over a fourth grade level. Because I don't want you to think. I want you to enjoy. And that's my approach.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
You want to enjoy it.
Yeah. Do you find for each of you, and feel free to jump in who'd ever like to, do you find that you gravitate towards writing for younger audiences? And what is it about writing for younger audiences that you enjoy?
Yeah, I definitely enjoy writing for younger audiences, and I think it's similar. We're all kids at one point, and the magic that comes from the discovery of doing anything as a child. We all have that nostalgia for that, and it's just really great to see kids light up and figure out like themselves and what they want to do with their lives, and writing for them feels really special because you're helping them develop into well-rounded adults, and to me that's so much more appealing than diving into all of our psychological issues as an adult, because we all end up having so many of them.
I agree with you 100%. I think I will add that I think it's an honor to be able to write for younger audiences, because you want to maintain that innocence as long as you can. You want to stay 8 years old as long as you can, with the innocence of that being 8 years old. I agree. It's an honor, and I hope the young readers. But like Carlos said, you're still a child no matter how old you are. Right? So I hope the older audiences are also appreciating it.
I can't remember the question. By the time it gets to me, I don't remember.
Do you find that you like writing for younger audiences? Do you prefer writing for younger audiences?
Once again, I write for everybody. Because I always picture a grandpa reading my book to a grandkid. And I try to write it, once again, where the kid can understand it, and the grandpa enjoying the story too. And so they're both getting a kick out of it. And then the kid's always going to ask why. The grandpa's got to explain it in simple language. And that's the way I approached it.
And I'd like our audience to learn about each of your books. Specifically, Carlos, I'd like to start with you. Would you mind telling us a bit about Burrito?
Telling the audience about Burrito.
Oh, my character is an everyman. He could be anywhere. Sometimes they call him a time traveler because he could be in any place in history. He could be out in space. He could be in another dimension. Excuse me. And so that's my character. And to me, I look at him as a superhero. And his superpower is wit. And I try in every book, he gets beat up and thrown around, and at the end he wins out of his wit. And that's my character.
And Paul, would you mind telling us about your book?
Sure. With Under the Cotton Tree, what I'm trying to do is capture a time and place that existed in New Mexico in 1949. And it really is to honor family members and culture. My mother was from a little village in New Mexico called Ancon Chico, right next to the Pecos River. 400 people were in that town. So these children have an adventure in a little town next to the river. This time it's the Rio Grande. And they will discover why there's a woman there who acts like a witch, but she's not a witch. She's a curandera. She's a healer of the village. So the children need to figure out, where does a healer go when they themselves need healing? And in the end, it's about family. One person is neglectful to his family, and the other person misses her family, and then they meet and they help each other. That's under the cottonwood tree.
So, The Secret Garden on 81st Street is a graphic retelling of The Secret Garden, which is a novel that takes place in England. And it's reset in New York. And the main character, her name is Mary, and she's really into gaming. And when her parents pass away, she has to go live with her uncle, who has no technology in the house. So she ends up finding a rooftop garden that's been neglected and dying and dead. And she helps to bring it back to life. And so the story is also about grief and about family. And it also deals with issues around anxiety. And it takes one of the characters from the original novel who had this very not known thing that was going on with him. Yeah, non-descriptive. Like he was just bedridden and wouldn't leave his room. So the writer Ivy Noel, where she ended up taking her own experiences dealing with anxiety and put it into this character. And it's a really beautiful book. And my dad enjoyed it, so I think similar,
dad approval.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
It's great for younger audiences, but I think adults would also really appreciate it. And the book that I'm working on right now, Sugar Coated, which I had created as my thesis for my master's program at CCA, and I was shopping it around, and I finally got a publisher to be interested in publishing it. And it's about a girl, it's a teenage girl who is a catfish, and so she uses someone else's photos to get a relationship with somebody online. And she also loves to bake, and there'll be some recipes in the book for really delicious treats. And it's going to be, hopefully it'll be awesome.
It will be awesome. Yeah. Paul, I'd like to go back to you regarding Under the Cottonwood Tree. We may have some aspiring creators in the audience here with us. Would you mind talking about the inspiration behind the book and your process of creation?
Sure. Everyone in this room has a story to tell. And this particular story started off with a dream that I had. Everybody has, I've always had fascinating dreams. I was like, wow, how did that happen? So when I was 10 years old, I remember having a dream about a talking calf because we had cattle in the backyard in Albuquerque. And so we raised the little baby calves. And I had a dream that one of them was talking to me. And I told that dream to my brother Carlos, and then my other brother Julio. They illustrated it, and they made it into a short story. And that's me and my brother Dennis. So this is a literal reenactment of a dream that I had. So from that dream, it turned into this book. So we just extrapolated from it. So any aspiring writers out there, what I would do is I love to keep dream journals. And I sit there when I wake up, I have the little journal next to me, next to my bedstand, and I will, sometimes I'll jot down the dream because this was wild. How did I have this dream? And then a few hours later, after I write it down, I'll look at it and go like, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. But once in a while, it does make sense. I'm like, this is cool. This could be a seed for a story to grow, because we all need to. When you tell a story, you're telling a little bit of yourself, and you're sharing yourself. So if there's any aspiring writers out there, keep a journal and keep writing. That's my suggestion.
And Amber, this Sugar Coated is going to be your first written and illustrated project together. How did you come up with the inspiration for the story, and how did you balance taking on both of those roles for the project? Yeah,
so what I wanted to do was I wanted the idea of friendship and, you know, coming of age of girls, and which you don't see as much in American media. So additionally, I wanted to draw attention to the community that I grew up in. So it takes place in the city that I was born and raised in Santa Ana. So a mostly Latino community. And Santa Ana is also located in Orange County, and Orange County is mostly known for a very white and wealthy population. So whenever I would see media with Orange County included, you would never see Santa Ana. And it always felt like, I don't understand this depiction of Orange County. Where are all the brown people? Because that's how I grew up. So I wanted to create that version for myself, and that's sort of where Sugar-Coated came from, and why I started making it with the characters that are included. And I also watch a lot of reality television, and at the time I was binge watching the Catfish series. So I had this idea that, like, I wanted to have the catfisher be the main character, because they're oftentimes sort of more villainized in that idea, because they are lying to people, but they're people, and you have to, like, wonder, why would they do that? And so I wanted to create a character who, although she's flawed, you learn to love her, and you love the journey that she's going through, and the journey of having like growing her own self-esteem and being okay with who she is herself. She doesn't have to put on someone else's face to feel good about herself. I don't know. That's
Well, in addition to that, what is your creative process like, given that you have to balance both the writing and illustrative duties?
It's hard. It's really hard. And I'm still working through it. And I think what the main thing is to be really communicative to your creative team. So for me, that's my agent and my editor on the book. And just to let them know that when you're running behind on things, because we're in the middle of a pandemic still. And it's been a very stressful few years. 2020 was probably the most stressful year of my life, for most people. And you know, I drew this entire book during 2020, and you know, I live in the middle of Oakland, and the Black Lives Matter protests were happening literally like right outside my door, and it was, my cat had cancer, he was dying, and it was a lot. So I think the process of writing and illustrating is very is a lot. I don't know, I think that's all I'm saying. And to be compassionate, I'm trying to be compassionate to myself and be like, okay, this is hard. It's really hard. It's hard work to write and illustrate. And just to be okay with that. I don't know if that answers the question.
Absolutely. Oh, it definitely does, yeah. Carlos, how did you come up with the burrito character, and what is your process like in writing and illustrating?
I came up with Burrito because that's what he looks like. Because one day I was watching some cartoons that were animals, and I was drawing superheroes like everybody else. And I go, I never drew an animal. I'm going to bring an animal. And I thought about it, and I go, hey, the mouse is taken. The duck is taken. The cat is taken. The dog, and it went down the line, and they're taken. And then finally go, a burrito. Nobody's drawn a burrito.
Yeah.
And I sat there on the napkin, and I drew him. And that came out. And he's been my flagship ever since, and I decided to dedicate my life to it. And then I like self-publishing because I had total control. I like to write it, draw it, and handle all the sales. And I just won't have, I don't like anybody else touching it. and that's it.
Absolutely.
Total control.
Absolutely. Paul and Amber, this question might be a little more for you, but YA and all ages comics and graphic novels content in general is pretty dominant right now in the publishing industry, especially in the comic book industry. Do you find in your work that either that you gravitate towards certain genres within those age groups, or that you find that certain genres are most popular? And either one, please feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I definitely gravitate towards YA. Like, just talking about, watching Euphoria, and I watch all the teen shows, and like I'm in the middle of watching Riverdale right now, which is based off of Archie comics, and that show is wild. It's a weird show. But I also love reading YA novels, and I think it's sort of that idea of that point in your life where you're deciding who you want to be as an adult, and it's something that people reflect back on when they're older, but it's also like a point in a younger person's life that's really important to them, and it's something you think about, and they're in the middle of it, and I think that's the reason why YA is so popular with both adults and younger people, because we're all sort of going back and reflecting at that point, that turning point in our lives. And I've just always been fascinated by that, both when I was growing up and I was part of that. It was like, oh, this is me. This is who am I going to be? And as an adult, I still reflect on it. So yeah.
I agree with you 100%. Those are your formative years, and I think why it is so popular is the adults are looking back and remembering and nostalgic for it. And then for the people that are going through that stage, it's great to be able to read stuff that, like, oh, this person is going through that as well. The catfishing thing is really fascinating because the dynamics or the personality behind that, who goes through that. So that's going to be an interesting discovery. I look forward to find out because that's a good question. Because I'm sure as a teenager, who doesn't lie? So it's being able to see that in yourself in a book. I'm just glad right now that there is I would say it's like a renaissance in that world, but also a renaissance of we've never seen before is representation of people of color. Because when, except for Carlos here, 30 years ago, that was probably one of the few brown characters out there.
They didn't know where to rack it, how to sell it, how to market it. They had no idea.
And now there's things like this that happen. So I'm glad there's a resurgence or a renaissance of it, if you say.
And actually, I'd like to stay with that for the moment in terms of inclusivity, both with the creators telling the stories
Sure.
and the characters and stories being told. Paul, you noted that there is an influx, that it's great to see more representation, again, both on the page and in the folks creating them. What do you see most prominent right now in terms of inclusivity, and what would you like to continue to see changing?
Well, and since there is such an influx of inclusivity, that's great. And if you look around that room, you think, oh, well, we're done. People of color have voices to tell. But this is just one room in a city of 200,000. Every city should have something like this. So there's a lot to go. So there's a lot of room to keep doing this. So I'm sure there's a lot of stories out there that could be included in this later on. I'm happy it's here. I'm happy that hopefully we can all ride a wave of inclusivity, because, when I was a kid, one of the impetuses of this story was, why isn't there a Chicano Wizard of Oz or a Latino never-ending story? That was really like I set out to write those types of stories, and now I look around the room like there's a room full of them. And that's a great thing, but there's a lot more rooms to fill.
I think for myself, again, gravitating back to slice of life stories, oftentimes Latino characters are depicted as gang members or drug cartels, and they're never given just the opportunity to be people, just people living their lives, falling in love, and because of that, there's the media portrayal of Latinos means that there are people who don't have contact with Latinos and think that's how they are. And so the idea of putting more representation in outside of these stereotypes means that people can have the empathy with them that they may not have for someone who's breaking the law, right? And they can finally, hopefully, humanize them and relate to them, because so much of American media is about humanizing people of color.
Absolutely.
What was the question?
Carlos, are you excited by the inclusivity in comics right now? And what would you...
What?
The inclusivity.
the fact that there's more representation?
Well, I'm happy for it. I'm very happy for it. I don't feel alone no more.
There you go.
You know, and now there's comrades out there, and yes, I'm really happy it's blossomed to that. And I guess I'm going to the forefront of it.
Yeah, awesome.
Carlos is a legend.
Yes.
Well, I guess, again, going back to the fact that there may be some aspiring creators in our audience, is there any advice that you would like to offer folks about whether it's telling their story or even where to begin?
I'll start off with one of my favorite authors is Ray Bradbury, great science fiction author. His advice that I'm not telling you his advice, but this is what I read from him, which was every day write a story, and after 365 days, there's got to be one of them that's good. So, and my advice would be dream journals. They're great seeds.
Carlos, did you
Yeah,
have
I also do dream journals, and 98% of times when I wake up, what the hell did I write?
Yeah.
But 2%, something's there. And the way I look at things is, it's just, you get a beginning, but you gotta have an ending. You don't start until you have that ending. Then the middle, you can fill it in with anything. And that's important. And then you just start writing it, and something comes out of it. And then it'll flow easy. You publish it. That's it. I hope I answered.
Absolutely. That's great advice. Yes.
Yeah, I think what I often tell people is to start off small, because you don't want to do a 250-page graphic novel first, because you want to build up your confidence, and also you don't need to wait for someone to tell you it's okay to make something. And I think what kids and what people have today, which I didn't have as much when I was growing up, is there's all these platforms and social media platforms that you can put your stuff out there for free, and you don't have to worry about printing costs and distribution, marketing. Although you have to do that yourself, but you can get your work out there sooner than later, and you can test things out, see how if do people like it. If not, then you can change the story and do something else. And yes, just start small. Zine fests are also really awesome. I like going to those. They're really easy to get a table at. They're really inexpensive, and they're all over the place. And you can print something on your home printer and staple it yourself and sell it to people. Even if it's like 6 pages, it's still novel.
In addition to your own books, which I highly recommend, everyone should pick up at the con today, are there other really great examples of young adult comics or graphic novels that you really look to as great books that you would recommend to our readers here?
Yeah, I always like to talk about everything that Tilly Walden does. Just really, she drives me crazy because I don't understand
She's
how.
so good.
She's so good. And then Mariko and Gillian Tamaki. This one summer was just like, it's hard to explain like how wonderful that book was, because it was this coming of age story that felt so relatable as a cisgender woman, girl, and I don't know, it was a transformative book. So highly recommend anything from Gillian and Mariko Tamaki, just love Tilly Walden, and so many great things are coming out of the First Second Publishing, and highly recommend anything from them.
Off the top of my head, so there's a coming of age story. I don't know any modern stuff going on right now, but please pick up Rodolfo Anaya's Bless Me Ultima, and it really is a coming of age story. It's not really, it's a coming of age story, but I would maybe 12 years old would read it, but it's not really for anything younger. But it captures again a time and place, just like Under the Commentary, and he really was the Chicano godfather of modern Chicano literature. I said that twice, but I would definitely search out Rodolfo Anaya. As far as modern stuff, I'm a fan of Quince. It like that when it came out, I'm like, wow, there's a brown superhero girl. That's and I remember I found it. I went to a bookstore. I didn't pick it up anywhere at one of the conventions. I don't know why, but I remember. I think it just come out, and I went through. I was like, this is good stuff. Yeah, this is really good stuff. And I haven't read this yet, but I got to pick it up out there. But research Rodolfo Anaya. He's a real hero of mine.
Now, this literature or comic book?
Anything at all that you'd recommend?
Okay, literature I really haven't been reading. Movies I've been watching. I think out of comic books, it would be the Hernandez brothers, Love and Rockets. That's a lot of good reading there. That would be good for young people and all ages too.
And thank you, Paul, for the shout out. If folks are unfamiliar, Quince is about a young woman who gets superpowers on her quinceañera, but only for the year that she's 15. And we have both a softcover English version of the entire series and then a bilingual edition. You get the whole thing in English with lots of bonus features, flip it over, and the entire thing in Spanish as well. And both are available at the Fanbase press table, as well as all of these amazing books. We have a few minutes left. I want to be mindful if there are any questions that folks have from the audience. Do you have any questions? That is okay if not. Okay. Well, I want to circle back to all of the amazing panelists that we have here. Amber, I know you've already mentioned it, but if you want to give another shout out to Sugar Coda that you have coming out.
Yeah, so again, I'm working on it right now, and hopefully it should be coming out in 2024. And so, look out for it. And there's going to be some other really amazing things that Scholastic is putting out. There's a TV show that they're doing from one of their YA books. It's going to be on Netflix. That's all I know.
Is it the Nate?
Yes. Yeah.
What is
So,
it?
It's Nate, something Nate.
yeah, it's about voice.
Oh, okay.
If that sounds familiar to anyone.
Yeah, it's a YA novel, graphic novel. But look out for it in 2024. And again, see Garden just came out in October of last year, and this was actually my first live in-person event that I was able to attend. Yeah, because it came out and we had to do it. We had to do our a virtual event. So this is really really awesome.
And Paul, any upcoming projects you want to see?
Well, Under the Cottonwood Tree is I had the same type of story where we came out in January of 2020. So I got all these books delivered to my house, and we had this book tour lined up, and we were going to go across the country or wherever they welcome us, and then everything got shut down. So it's like, oh, pivot time. But so it's like I'm still working on getting this out there. There is an outline done for chapter 2 of this book, and then chapter 3 is a vague blur right now. But yeah, I want to continue these stories if I can. And but if you go on to the website utctbook.com or undercountry.com, and if you don't have time to pick up a book, you can pick up a PDF of it. So I'm still. That's what I'm working on now. It's just trying to broaden the audience of it.
We had the same exact thing with the hardcover, January 2020. And then for our audience, Under the Cottonwood Tree is a multi-award-winning book. So this is a really, I mean, all of these books are phenomenal, but you know, these are award-winning folks up here. So these are super talented folks. If you have questions for them, or even if you just want to stop by the tables, please do so and say hello. Carlos, any new burrito stories coming?
When the lockdown started, I contacted colleagues of mine, Ralph Novato, who does Sonambulo, Javier Hernandez, who does El Muerto, Mike L. Shanker, who does El Gato, and Richard E. Dominguez, who does El Gato Negro. And they all loaned me their character.
Oh, cool.
Do a crossover with
Awesome.
them. And during the lockdown, I wrote 3 stories, and I published them, and they're premiering at this convention for the first time. And upcoming is trying to cross over with somebody else.
Oh.
And that's my project.
I mean, that's great because look what Marvel's doing with all these crossovers. There's crossover in this room. That's awesome.
And are there any websites? Probably know you shared some, but if you want to remind folks, any websites, social media, and where can we find you here in the convention?
Myself, I'm just up the front next to Comadres Comics. Yeah, I love those girls. They're like, I love listening to their show, and I was really nervous. I'm excited. I'm just going through there. I'm just like, when they reviewed On the Country, we sat there. I'm like, oh my god, are they gonna like it? Because if they don't like it, I was gonna be like, oh. And then they liked it. I was like, oh, okay, okay. Yeah, right next to them, and the website is underthecottonwoodtree.com or utctbook.com.
And I'm just, you can find my website at amberpadilla.com, and my social media handle is at Candy Mistakes. And just FYI, I'm not that great at social media, but yeah, but please reach out to me if you have any questions. Yeah.
My website is tunis.com. It's like cartoonist, but he doesn't have a car. It's tunis.com. Now, I'm also on Facebook as Carlos Saldaña Cartoonist, and that's where you can find me. And my booth is the first one to the right. See here.
Oh yeah, and I'm located right across the street from Fanbase. So
We're here
across the street, across the aisle.
Yes. We're by the vending machines, so you can find us there and get a soda at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say a huge thank you to Carlos, Paul, and Amber. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us and all of your amazing books that you have created. I hope folks, again, please be sure to stop by their booths, pick up the books, or just ask questions if you have them, if you're aspiring readers yourselves. But thank you so much for coming, and enjoy the rest of the festival.
Thanks, guys. Thanks.